I'm back. And hopefully my microphone's loud enough. Oh my goodness, my voice sounds so weird. Alright. Alrighty. Adjust the gain a little bit. Alright. Alright, sorry, give me a second. Yeah, I just remember from the other day, someone was mentioning that my gain's weird. Alright. I can't spend too much time on this. I should have done this off camera. Or screen. Let's see. Okay. That seems to be a little better, I think. Okay, so... Okay, yeah, I know this is very, very entertaining stuff here. Okay, cool. Alright. Alright, so... what we got here? We got another day of straight ahead storyboarding. Wow, session 26. 26 attempts at this. Very cool. So what is this whole challenge thingy that I do? Alright, I'll do my intro bit. This is the Master Shots Volume 2 challenge. It's a challenge I have developed over the years for improving storyboarding, drawing speed, and writing speed, and just being able to create scenes intuitively instead of spending too much time on a single scene. What it does is, or how the warm-up exercise works, is that you use the book Master Shots Volume 2, which is a book written by Christopher Kenworthy, who's not me. So go check out his book. What you do is you combine two sections from the book at random, and then you have to create a scene using those two sections from the book, sort of like as prompt. And then what you do is you just draw for like 22.5 minutes straight, and then you look at how far you've done, or how much you've gotten done. But realistically, how it turns out with me is I probably draw for 22 minutes or 30 minutes or until the scene mostly gets done. By the way, I have an interval timer playing in the background. You guys can't hear, but I can hear. That makes a beeping sound every 15 seconds. And I tried to draw to the rhythm of it, but it does not always work out. So, workout is in me getting to draw one panel every 15 seconds. Alright, cool. So, today, I think I might be reusing the technique that was used last time. Drawing from a grid view. We'll see. The reason for this is because the scene just went by so much faster. Like, in terms of my being able to get the story out, this scene was just boarded so quickly, or thumbnailed out, however you want to say it, so quickly compared to other scenes I've done, which are, other scenes I've done are still cool. Like, for instance, was the last scene I did that was drawn straight ahead. Yeah, like this scene. There's these characters floating through space and through some debris. And, flying around talking to each other. Like, this is really cool. But in terms of story, I didn't get a lot of story in. Or as much story in, versus this sequence, while it's not as fun to look at, and you can't flip through it easily, there's a lot more story in it. There's a lot more beats, there's a lot more cuts. There's more things happening in it. Which to me is a bit more exciting. I don't know. But I guess it's harder to present something like this. You know what I'll do? For the first time, we might actually use Storyboard Pro's thumbnail view. And so then that way we kind of get the best of both worlds. By Miley Cyrus. Alright, let's see. Okay. Yeah, well, we'll use the thumbnail view. Well, first, we actually need to figure out what our two shot types are going to be. So I need to get my random dice generator and roll it twice and see what gets rolled. Let's see. Hmm. 101 was rolled. It's interesting. I feel like that was done very, very recently. Okay, so section 101 or 10.1. What is it? Okay, this is solo move. We've rolled this like 4 or 5 times. I'm not doing this. Okay, sorry. 14, nice. Okay, I rolled it again. Yeah, no, section 10.1's been rolled like 4 times, and it's a section that still confuses me. I'm tired of doing it. Okay. Ooh, okay. This is an interesting one. This is a tricky one. Oh, man. This is, okay. This one's gonna be tricky. Crossing lines. Section 1.4. Okay, so this one's gonna be tricky because as far as I'm aware, this one is just knowing when to intentionally cross and break the 180 rule. Okay. Yes, okay. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. It's not that it's hard to break the 180 rule. It's very easy to do it, actually. Watch, I can do it right now. Here's 2 characters talking. Here's 1, 2. They're like, wow, I don't feel like talking about the Empire today. And this person over here is like, yeah, me neither. The joke's getting kind of old. And then I'll cut back to character 1. I'm not going to put him on screen right. I've now moved him over here for some reason. And character 2, I've now put over here. He's like, yeah, I got tired of you using that gag in every video, mentioning Star Wars detours. And then we go back to character 1, but we're now behind him like this. And character 2 is now over here. Oh wait, hold on. He needs to be on screen left. Character 1's over here. Character 2 is now over here. You know what, actually, I could do that, but I really don't want to. Then he walks off screen. Maybe on screen right. Something like that. And he walks away into the distance. Okay, so that was technically a break in the 180 rule. Oh man, I got a spam bot. Right, D9. Alright, goodbye. So what is the 180 degree rule, you may ask? This is something that I've talked about beforehand, where I said I would explain it later, and then I didn't have any reason to explain it later. And so for the most part, what I had talked about was screen direction and continuity. Continuity of geography and just continuity of which directions characters are moving and whatnot. However, for this, we can now talk about the 180 rule. So the 180 degree rule, more of a tool, I'd say, because you can break it, is, let's say here's a character here. And then let's say we have a character over here. The idea is that the camera does not move more than 180 degrees on an invisible line going between the two characters. And so then that way it is always pivoting on that 180 degree like axis or swivel point, whatever you want to say. All right, so I'm going to draw this with a line that's in color. So for instance, if the camera starts here, okay, the camera starts here, and what we're going to see is we're going to see a shot, something like this is what the camera's looking at. It's going to have character 1 on the left, character 2 on the right, because it's over this guy's shoulder, right? Makes sense. And so the 180 degree rule would be like, okay, this camera cannot pivot more than 180 degrees in one way or the other. So here's our line between these two characters. Let's say here's our pivot point. So let's imagine that our camera's kind of like tied to a rope or something like that. That means the camera can move, it can swing over here to this side. So hold on, you have to imagine that this is in vertical space. So it's technically not on the blue line. It's actually just a little bit left of it. Just letting you know. Its shadow is here. So basically what the camera's going to see from over here is something like this. Character 2 is on the right side. Character 1 is on the left side. And so this is the basics of the 180 degree rule. So you see here, character 2 is on screen right. Character 2 on this other shot is still on screen right. You know, he hasn't moved. Yeah, sure, the shot has changed, but he's in the same part of the screen. And so that's the basics of the 180 degree rule. Now, what can change it, for instance, is if, let's say we, okay, so let's say we have the scene, but then I'm just going to copy these characters and move them over here so you can see a progression of things going on. So let's say we go over here, and then let's say a third person enters the scene. Oh my goodness. Here's someone in a doorway who just walks in, not in perspective.
Okay, now it's a little bit better in perspective. So here's someone who walks in through the door, and he's like, hey, the Empire's pretty chill, yo. Maybe you should, like, join it or something. Okay, gotta get it in there once per stream. Okay, so let's say this guy comes in. What's gonna happen here is that now if we're gonna, like, cut to him and still have all these characters in the scene. Hold on, I'm gonna delete all this. We're actually gonna be able to break the 180 degrees, because let's say our camera now has to move here to get this character. See this character entering in through the door? Here's my out of perspective camera. See these characters look over at him. And so now the shot that we're gonna see is something like this. Okay, now we haven't broken the 180 degree rule yet, because we've actually only moved, like 90 degrees. So we went from, here to here. Yeah, not even 90 degrees. Probably a little bit less. So we're now here. And so what they're going to see on this camera is, here's a person in the door frame talking about the Empire being pretty chill and making a Star Wars Detours reference. But now what's going to happen is the pivot point, or the line in between them, is going to move if we do another shot. Where if we want to see a reaction shot of their acting. So now, maybe we want to see their facial expressions. And then what's going to happen is our 180 degree line, or pivot point, or whatever you want to call it, has now shifted. It is now going to be between these two. And so now, let's say we put the camera in the door frame, or behind the door frame. So let's say the camera goes all the way back here now. Okay, it's all the way back here. And what's it going to see? It's going to see character on screen right, and two characters standing in a room, looking at the camera. Maybe we can have the door frame. And so technically, that went past our 180 degree line. Like our 180 degree line, we were hopping between these 2 points. And then now we're way over here. That's breaking the rule. Well, no, it's not. Because the rule is more so, actually, it isn't, because we hop to this position first. So we intentionally hop to this position to then be able to hop to this position. So what we did is we moved the line, essentially. Also, I drew this line in the wrong spot. Sorry, it made sense to me. But really what's going on is that the line moved here. Moved like that. So the pivot point's there. But yeah, no. Basically, because we're moving the camera in increments, the line can move every time the camera moves. So that way we're not making too big of a jump. So you see here, the camera's moving between these 2 points. And then what happens is a third person enters the room, and it still moves less than 180 degrees, but it's now establishing a new axis point. And then now we cut over to here, which is less than 180 degree movement. And it sets up this new composition over here, where character 3 is on screen right, and character 1 and character 2 are now on kind of screen left. So they've turned into one entity instead of 2 entities. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. So, as far as I know, what the book is implying is section 1.4 is just about knowing when to break the 180 degree rule, which is when you don't pay attention to any of this. You just ignore it. But you have to ignore it intentionally. Because if you ignore it unintentionally, it looks sloppy and bad. But if you're able to utilize it, you can do something pretty cool. So, all right, cool. I'm gonna go look for the next section. Let's see, what's the next section? Roll the dice. Hey, section 22. Or 2.2, I guess, is really what I should be saying. Okay, section 2.2. Where is it? What is it? Let's see. Closing space. Okay. This one is not difficult to explain at all. Yeah. Closing space. So, this section is, it's just about characters getting closer to each other. In the distance, getting smaller and smaller. So let's say you have a shot like this. You got one character who's sitting here. He's sitting by a pleasant little stream. And there's water flowing. Maybe he's reading a book. He's in an idyllic, I don't know what, environment. And there's a little log or something like that. And there's, I don't know, some woods. Something over there. And a funny little goblin pops up on the other side. And our character, while following the 180-degree rule, stays on screen left. And he sees the goblin pop its head out. But he's way on screen right. And then we cut to the opposite view of this little goblin who's sorry, who's skittering about, and maybe he's moving the screen right, and then the goblin eventually starts to walk across this bridge here while our character's on screen left watching him. So here's this goblin doing a little tightrope act walking across this bridge. And then we cut back to our character, and the camera's a little closer. He's like, he really doesn't want this goblin to ruin his book reading experience. But the goblin is, hold on, I'm going to use a wider lens. Nope. Okay, there. He's there. You know, you got this goblin. He's getting closer. He's walking across this bridge, this log. And eventually we can see the goblin. And I don't know what this goblin wants. But you see he is now getting closer to our character. And maybe he wants to sell him something. Maybe he wants to sell him time bonds or something like that. I don't know. And then eventually, the two characters are now really close. And the goblin, you know, is like sharing the screen space with him. He's like, hey, or time shares, whatever. I forget what they're called. He's like, hey, you want to buy some? Then maybe he gets so close that he actually passes by our character. And he's like looking at him from behind. He's like, it's like, I don't know what he's saying. He's saying something that's funny. And our character's a little nervous. Maybe the goblin's like, I know your credit card number. Or something like that. Okay. Either way. So, how is this closing space? Very easy. Very simply. This, like, basically all the mechanics of this are that a character is getting closer to someone in screen space. So, for instance, here you see Goblin is far on screen right. Character is far on screen left. Okay? They're really far away from each other. And, you know, it'd be easier just to draw the negative space in between them. So here's the negative space in between them. And so what's happening is that the negative space throughout each panel or through each moment is getting smaller and smaller until now the negative space is actually on either side of them. It's no longer between them. And so, yeah, that's closing space. All it is just a tool to show that a character is approaching or getting closer. And it's just making sure that you understand, like, hey, are your characters intentionally far away from each other? Or are they unintentionally far away from each other? Making sure that, distance is being utilized for storytelling. Yep, that's it. Cool. So now we gotta write a scene that makes sense with all this. Cool. Yeah, crossing lines. I think crossing lines is going to be the most difficult one. I know a way to do this for, okay. Man, I need to do my review of Perfect Blue, my analysis. Perfect Blue does this, crossing lines randomly. Well, it's not random, but, like, it feels random. It uses it to emphasize, like, character moments for Mima, where the camera will jump the line whenever she makes, like, a big decision. Or she makes a choice, or when she's trying to go into character or out of character. You'll get a shot where she, like, she's looking down, maybe a little scared and emotional, because she doesn't know she can act well. And then she'll turn her head up, and then suddenly she's turned her head up in the opposite direction, because we, like, flipped. The camera flipped in a direction that's not expected. So that movie does that every once in a while. I don't know if that's technically a 180-degree break, but it feels jarring, and it's used very effectively in that movie. Okay, cool. Let's see. We're going to do the thumbnail view. We're going to try it. I don't use it very often. I don't really like to draw on it, but we're going to see how it works. It's going to take it a minute. Storyboard Pro has a little bit of a loading time whenever you click the thumbnail view. Yeah, that's the thumbnail view. So this is thumbnails. So, yeah, the thumbnail view, how this works is... Yeah, actually, I don't think there's really anything to explain. This is it. This is what it looks like. There you go. It can be useful because then you can switch back to a close-up view. problem is just something about it feels weird to me. So that's it. I think it's because there's these big gaps in between them. So, and actually, speaking of which, I really do not want this here. I'm now going to copy this layer and paste it across all these layers and replace them. All right, I'm 34 minutes in. I better get my act together. Okay. Okay, cool. Do I just want to keep on doing storylines in the flats? Or I could do that. That sci-fi story. Okay. Sorry. So these two are a good combination, closing space and crossing the line. Because both of them are about continuity and screen direction. And so then that means there's a lot to like play with expectations. If that makes sense. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just mentally thinking through this scene. As to what type of scene I want to do. I think probably what I want to do is I probably want to do a closing space scene first. And I want to have some character that's approaching another character. And talking to them. And then somehow, when they get closer, when they get close enough to the other character, what's going to happen is that they're going to somehow cross the 180-degree line because they say something that sounds weird and makes the other character feel uncomfortable. And so then that break in the screen direction and in the closing space is going to feel really weird and awkward. And maybe a little bit like uncomfortable. That's the best conclusion I can think of in terms of how this would go. Okay, the best way I can do this in a scene that's semi-serious, because this would be really easy to do with a character in like a cartoony environment. You know, I might actually want to do this. Sorry, I'm talking to myself here. I might want to do this section twice. I might do this section tomorrow as well. Because there's a lot of opportunity to do a cool scene with this. I think probably I'm going to do something in the flats aesthetic. So then that way it's a bit more serious scene. I'm going to have the character maybe tired and exhausted or something like that. So their sense of their perception of reality is a little bit off. And so then that'll explain the jump in the 180-degree line. And I think tomorrow I might do an instance of this, how you do the same effect, but in a cartoony format. We're trying to use it for a punchline. I think that's I'm talking to I'm talking to me. I think that's a great idea. You're right. That does sound like a great idea. Cool. I'm glad we're in agreement. All right. All right, time to lock in. All right. Interval timer. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, timer started. We're gonna have some sort of POV shot of a character walking. Like, I don't know, up some stairs or something. Maybe it's just 1 foot after the other. They've had a really long day. Oh, now I remember why I dislike drawing in thumbnail view. There's a small delay. There's a visual update. Yeah, it's this. There's a visual update delay. When you're drawing from panel to panel. And it makes it nearly impossible to actually thumbnail in because there's that little hesitation. We're gonna use like a Snorri cam for this scene. So the camera's gonna kind of track her, and then the background's gonna be a little bit wobbly. It's an appropriate use of a Snorri cam in a scene where a character is getting tired and nearly falling asleep. Because she's almost snoring. Okay, that's not actually the origin of the term Snorri cam, but whatever. Maybe she like looks up the staircase and her friends are already gone. Like her friends have already walked away. The shot should be centered. It isn't. That's my bad. And maybe she looks down at her hand or something like that. On the railing. Sorry, these are very loose storyboards. That's her hand. Actually, the other hand should be moving forward first. So that hand moves, and then that hand moves. And then she, she's tired. She's like, oh, I'm falling asleep. And she, I don't know, her face moves up. Then we cut to the staircase. Maybe she hears her friends, like off screen here. Hold on, I'm gonna highlight that in blue. Okay. Maybe she hears her friends. She can hear that they're up there. And so what's gonna happen is we're gonna have this high angle shot. And then as she gets closer, and then the camera's going to push in through here because it's a POV. We're going to get this extreme wide shot, and there's going to be no one there at the top of the stairs. It just sounds like there's people there, but there really isn't. Here's all the pipes and machinery and stuff like that. That was probably the slowest way I could have done this. Yeah, okay. so she walks out. I really do not like the positioning of this. She should be down. Hey, you know what? She can be higher in the frame. I don't care. So she like walks out and then like looks around. Sorry, this is really small. I wish I could zoom in a little bit better. So however, she looks that way. She looks that way. Sorry, yeah, these are really tiny. And then maybe she sees we're gonna add a bench here. She like walks over. Maybe she just sits down on the ground. Maybe there's something convenient for her to lean up against. And it's just like, oh, I am tired. Hi, tired. My name is Chris. Oof. And sits down on the ground. Okay, this is a lot of build-up. I need an actual scene. And so maybe she's like, okay, we're gonna cut in. Man, I really like doing these psychological shots. We're gonna have a slow push in. Here's her like stuff that she has beside her. Camera's just gonna slowly push in. And we're gonna get closer to her character as she's like nearly falling asleep. Maybe there's like mist and stuff like that in the background of the machinery. This push-in would be like 20 seconds long or something. It's building up tension. And then what's going to happen is we're going to do a cut in close, like a real extreme close-up at the very end of it, just for emphasis. And she hears something, so she looks, and there she sees, I don't know, one of her friends at the end of the hallway, something like that, coming through the mist or something like that. Maybe several friends, something like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this expression. So we're still going to focus on the fact that she's not actually really reacting to this because she's too tired. Alright, not a lot. Maybe she like begins to move, and we'll use that as motivation to cut to this shot where they are over there. She's way over here. I mean, they're coming down the hallway, something like that. Maybe she like waves her hand. It should just be one friend, honestly. If it's multiple friends, it'll feel too weird, I think. You know what? Actually, it can be multiple friends. So what's going to happen is she's going to wave to them or say something. But she's still like super tired. And then, trying to think, how does this work? They maybe walk. Let's see, I'm trying to think. To make this fit this rule, fortunately, I'm having to make this fit this rule instead of, actually maybe do what's best in service for the scene. Which I don't like doing that. Give me a second. This is gonna stall me. What I want is that they just kind of walk by. Hold on. I set this up wrong. Give me a sec. She needs to be over on screen left. And they need to be approaching, or she needs to be on screen right, and they need to cross over. And pass her. So then that'll create this kind of moment where they get close, but then they just pass by. And then the camera goes behind her. And we see them walk by. Sorry, you're gonna have to imagine a lot in this one. Yeah, because she's consistently on screen right, so she needs to be on screen right as they're passing by. So now she's on screen left. She sees them walk off into the mist or whatever. So now she's on screen left. And she feels hurt or something like that, because maybe those are some of her friends and she doesn't know why they weren't talking to her. And the reason is because she's super tired. She doesn't have a good grip on what's happening. And then what we can have is she's sleepy or something. And then we can have someone, do a little jump scare where someone actually talks to her or puts their hand on her. And it's like, And so then now did we actually break the 180? No, we didn't. Did we jump real quickly? Yeah. Dang it, that's not a break in 180. Sorry. Give me a sec. She at least swapped screen spaces real quick. So that's kind of similar. So here's some friend with big ears. I don't know who they are. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to cut back to her on the ground, and her friend's hand is on her shoulder. And she's like, wow, yeah, thanks. She's like, yeah, I'm just tuckered out. Something like that. Actually, I need to make sure that when she looks up, I want to kind of establish now that it feels like this is real by having them both in the same shot at the same time. So here's a character with big ears or whatever. I don't know what they're talking about. But you see, what I'm going to do is now I'm going to do the closing space again. I'm going to do it twice in one scene. This is very adventurous. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it feel more real than the last experience. Because the last one, the characters walked away and it felt, you know, almost like they were phantoms. And so this one, I wanted to feel more like, okay, this isn't an illusion or anything like that. You know, this is reality. And then, so this character is gonna, so you see now, they're getting closer in terms of, you know, this character turn their head. They're getting closer, which makes this moment feel more emotional. Like this person's genuinely here to help them, to help this character who's really tired and sleepy. And so they're going to be really close in the frame. I mean, they say something that makes our main character feel a little happy. And then maybe this is like a very long lens shot, and our character like looks away for a brief moment to like give a response. Maybe to something that this character said. And so then that way that character is off screen for just a moment. And then when she looks back, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? The other person's going to be gone. Spooky. See, oh my goodness, where'd the person go? And now we're just going to cut to like a POV. There's just no one there. And then, what else can we do with this? Trying to think. We can cut to her on screen left. And then maybe all this negative space behind her. Just to show that there's, Man, this isn't a break in the 180 though. This is really difficult for me to intentionally break the 180. Dang it. What we should have is a centered shot that makes her feel a little isolated. And then okay, the best I can do. The best I can do is she turns, and as she turns, we cut to the opposite angle, and maybe dang it, could cut to the opposite angle, like really far away, to make it look like she's like all by herself or something, like down the hallway. Just to show that there was like nobody there the whole time or something. But it's not a break in 180 degree rule. Dang it. Sorry, I'm slowing down because now I'm like, I can't figure out how this scene is supposed to go now. And this super low angle shot. So this is actually a shot that's like nearly impossible to do a 180 degree break on, or it'd be really hard to. Sorry, I gotta go for the story. What works best for the story, not for what follows the scene the best. Or, okay. Gonna have her turn her head. And, maybe I can do a transition. Sorry, I'm trying to get fancy here. I'm trying to think how I can do a break in screen direction. I could do a cut to another scene in another location. Okay, maybe I can have her collapsing in another location. Like, maybe it's a bed or something like that. Sorry, this feels lame. This feels like a cop-out. I'm sorry, guys. And so technically, the 180 was kind of broken. If that makes sense. Where she was falling screen right to screen left, and then we cut to another scene where she's now falling screen left to screen right, in a different environment. And then, yeah, that technically could work. It's like a bed or something like that. I think there's junk and stuff everywhere. And there's like only one little light source. I don't know. You got me. Okay, cool. Let's walk through the scene. So, because we did this in thumbnail view, by we, I mean me, because this was done in thumbnail view, technically we can flip through this in an expanded view much more easily, but the drawing quality is going to be pretty bad. So, feast your eyes on low quality thumbnails expanded as soon as Storyboard Pro loads it up. Sorry, keep on harassing Storyboard Pro. It is my favorite storyboarding software, but it has little things that make me irked. Okay, so we're starting on a POV shot. This is a staircase. You just gotta imagine it. This is a POV of a staircase. Character's walking up the stairs. She's really tired. I'm gonna put a little note that says Snorri Cam. So then that way people can understand what's going on. So this is a Snorri Cam. And so she's like disoriented and she's going up the stairs and she sees her friends leaving. She's like, oh, she's pulling herself up. And she can hear them talking. She's like, oh, I gotta catch up to them. She's like, I gotta get closer. And she walks out. There's like nobody there. Maybe there's like mist and stuff like that, maybe. Like little poofs of fog. Something like that. And she goes and she just sits down. She realizes there's nobody there. So we do this slow pushing of her. We got smoke in the background and stuff like that. She's nearly asleep. And then we do a super sharp cut in with this, this extreme close-up. She looks over because she hears people. There's some people walking down the hall. She's like, oh, hey. It's like, hey, how you guys doing? And nobody, responds to her. She's like, huh? And then someone touches her shoulder. Huh? Turns. Here's this person with big ears. I don't know, one of her friends. And they're talking. She's like, oh, hey, yeah. Man, I'm just real tired. It's like, oh, yeah. They say something. They talk about their job or work, whatever they're doing. It's like, And so she's talking, and you see now the negative space between them is getting smaller between these shots to make this feel like it's a real conversation that's actually happening. And they're talking. She's like, yeah. She looks off to the side, and she looks back. Oh, nobody's there. Huh? And she looks over, and now we're on the opposite side of her. There's nobody there. She kind of, I don't know, we would pause here for maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Then she leans over and falls, and poof, she's now in her bed back at home or something like that. Just to do a weird passage of time moment. So that the audience has to catch up a little bit, in the same way that she's having to catch up a little bit. Either way, that technically kind of got both of these in here. We had multiple sort of semi-crossing the lines. We didn't have any complete breaks in the 180, but we did have the characters frequently switching from screen right to screen left, from screen right to screen left, left to right, vice versa. And closing space was actually done twice. So yeah, I did that twice and once. I did crossing the line, I think, several times. And at the very end, it actually is a break of the 180, even though it's technically a new scene. Yeah, I might try this scene again tomorrow, and do it in a more cartoony story instead of something that's less dramatic. just to show that how this could be used for comedy. Yeah, I think this is a good combo. Both of these are related to distance and spacing and positioning of characters. And that's what I think makes this combination fun. It's because it's a play with how close someone gets, and then are they actually where you expect them to be. Cool. Well, other than that, I am, or I guess, yeah. I have work to do. I have stuff to go do. So thank you very much for watching, and yeah, have a good rest of your day. See ya. Bye.